Okay, so this is a video for regular expressions, and to just briefly cover some of the key things in regular expressions. So I'm just going to be using Java programming language to show how the regular expressions work. So let me start. Let me just create a new package. This, so I can just call this regex. Then I'll create a new class. Call this regular x. So add this to git. So I'll just create the main method so that we can just run everything from here. Then I'll create a static. Just call this boolean test regs. So I'll just return false for this method. So for me to use this method, I can just say test regs, and it's going to run our method for us. So basically at this stage now, what we're just going to do is we're just going to create some regular expressions. So let me just add some comments here to add some of the symbols that we're going to use. So we have, this is starts with we also have this /d, or similar to 0 to 9, like this. So both of these are the same. So this is any number. So we have this, which is A to Z, any lowercase character. So this is any lowercase or uppercase. Or uppercase characters, right? Then we now have this. So this is any alphanumeric character. So any alphanumeric character. So I'll just replace it as one word. So we have all this. Then we have this as well, which we use as an optional. You can just use it to select either or two items. So we have this, which is for grouping. We have this to say 0 or more. We have plus, which is 1 or more. So we have a lot of them, right? There are several, but we'll just focus on these few for now. So if we want to create the pattern, so let's say we want to set a pattern for this plus 2 3 4 dash 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, right? So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. So we get rid of one character. So this is a regular Nigerian phone number. So we want to create a design pattern for this. So I'll just have this. The idea behind this is not the ability to write the code, right? But it's just for you to see. It's just for me to run it so that you can see the results. So I can now have phone, let me call this NINGN phone pattern. Now the pattern is going to be, I'm going to say pattern.compile. So this now accepts a string of regular expression. So this is where we write our regular expression. So what we're going to have here now is our regular expression. So our regular expression is going to start with, so it's going to start with plus 2, 3, 4, right? So it's going to start with plus 2, 3, 4. Then it's going to have a dash, right? So now, because I'm using this IDE, it's already telling me that this on its own is a regular expression operator, so I need to escape it. So to escape, if you're writing this on paper, to escape is going to be 1 slash, right? But because I'm writing this in an IDE now, I'm going to be using 2 slashes because I need to escape the slash itself. So I'm escaping this. So this will escape this slash and this will escape this slash. So if you're writing this on paper, it's just going to be start with slash plus 2, 3, 4 dash. That's what it's going to be. So this now is the equivalent of this in paper. So the next thing we need now is this, right? We need either of this slash d, any number. So we're going to get any number, which is slash d, and we're going to say this number now we want it to be 10, 10, right? So the same thing with this. So for every time I'm escaping, since I'm using an IDE, I have to escape twice, right? Now this IDE is smart enough to know that if we put the minimum and maximum, so let me add this here also. So we have this x comma y, right? So this is at least let me just use no. So let's say at least 10 times, at most y times. So this will be x here. So at least I think this wants me to separate them. At least x times, at most y times. So I'm saying the number should be 10, right? But this ID is smart enough for it to just wrap it. So this can be simplified to just this. So you can just replace that with a single one, right? That's because we are using IntelliJ. So now we can go ahead to test this our pattern. So for us to test our pattern, we're just going to print out the result. So we're going to say sys out. So I'll call this phone ngn regex, then colon space plus, then I'll now say ngn phone pattern dot matcher. So we're now going to pass in a phone number to see if it matches. So I'm just going to take this phone number that we have here now and test it. So it's going to, so this statement now is going to give you phone ngn regex, and this is going to return either true or false. So once we do this, we'll now say dot find. So remember, a regular expression is a sequence of characters that represents a search pattern, right? So we're going to find if this pattern exists within this regular expression. So that's what we want to do now. So let's run this our main method. So just take its time to build. So we have our regular expression has returned true. So let's try without the minus and see if we have the same result. So let's run this. See, this time we have false, right? So if we return this and we change maybe this to 5, we are still getting false because we need plus 2, 3, 4. So this tells you that our regular pattern at least works for this particular sequence of characters. So it matches, it knows that you have to start with plus 2, 3, 4, minus or dash, then with 10 characters. So let's see if we have 9 characters here, what happens. So it fails as well, right? Because it doesn't match. So this is the phone number pattern. So now let's say we have a date pattern. So I'm going to have, let me copy this other part. So the other slash is gone, because so now this here on paper is the equivalent to this. So the reason why we have 2 slashes here is because we have to escape the escape character in a regular expression. So now let's create another regular expression for date. So let's say you are having a date. Today's date is 08-02-2024. This is a fairly simple regular expression, right? So we have a static pattern. So I'll call this date pattern. Then I'll say pattern compile. And now we write our regular expression. So this one now, it starts with 2 numbers, right? Followed by another 2 number, then 4 numbers. So I'm just going to simply write this as this. So for us to have any 2 numbers, we need /d, then we need it to be 2, then say dash, right? Then another d, which is 2, then dash, then lastly we have another d here, and this will be 4. So we're going to similarly test this pattern. So we're going to say sound, I'm going to call this date regex. So we now have date pattern matches, and it's going to match, let's say, today's date. Let me take this, so I'm going to put this here, not find. So let's run this and see what we get. So you see our date regex as well is returning to true. So this is another fairly simple regular expression. So let's go to something that is more progressive. So let's say we want to do a regular expression for an if block now. So I'll just call this this will be another pattern, and I'll call this an if let's just say if block pattern. So we can say pattern dot compile. So for the if statement, right, the if block, we're just going to work on the start of it. So let me move this here. Okay, no, I think that's fine. This is fine. So it's this one that I want to move. So this now is the equivalent of this, and this is the equivalent of this. So this is on paper, the ones grayed out are on paper, and the ones here in code are the ones in code. So what I'll do now is let's create the one for the if block. So the if block starts with an if statement followed by an opening bracket, then a variable, then a conditional statement or relational op. Let me just put this relational operator, which can be less than, greater than, and so on. Then we now have another variable, another variable we're comparing with, right? So this is what we're going to be working on, but we're going to work on it progressively so that I don't make any mistakes. So for us to do this now, we have to say it has to start with it's a string, and it now has to start with if. Now to start with this, but remember the bracket itself, right? The bracket itself is a group. So now it's telling us that this is an empty group, but what we need is, we don't need a group, we need just the brackets themselves. So we now have to escape the bracket. So we're going to escape the opening bracket and escape the closing bracket. So let's test this out, and this is going to be, I just call this plain if block. So this will be if block pattern dot matcher. Then we can now pass in our input to say if, then find, and let's see if we get any true result here. So scroll, so our if block is true, but let's see, let's validate with this. So you can see it's giving us false now. So at least at this stage you can see this particular one works. You can go ahead and test and get back to me, and let's see if there's any bug. But so far, let me try this. Still doesn't work, so we need it in this pattern. So we're progressively going to increase this. So now let's have an if block now with the operators in them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to say static pattern, let's say if block with ops. So ops in this case is operators. So we're going to compile. So I'm just going to pick this, since this, we've confirmed that this is working for us, so we can have this. So once we have this if block, now what we need now is a way to find those two conditions, right? So, or multiple conditions. So we can have this, in this case let's just have this or this as our current condition, or similarly if we want, we can group them to now have less than, greater than, let's just have this as well. So hopefully this works. So let's see, this is if open bracket, then either this or this or this. So let's create its own matcher. So sound if it's a string if block with ops. So here now we can now say if block with ops not matcher, and we're now going to have a string of if, then we can have, let's try less than and see dot find. So let's run this. So we are having true, right? Let's try this without the operator and see what happens. So we are getting false. So it means this aspect that we added works as it is right now. So we need to add an operator here for it to work. So let's try the double equal sign. So, and that works as well. So now the final thing we're going to do now is to have like the complete pattern that we have here. So we need to add the variables here. So I'm just going to copy this so that I don't type a lot. So I'll add this. So let me take this now and have the grayed out one for what it's supposed to look like on paper. So this is what it's going to look like on paper if you're writing regular expressions on paper. So I'll add and vars. This is going to be and variable. So what we're going to do now is, if you look at this, on the left side of the conditional operator, right, you should have a string, right? On the right side you should have, well, not a string but a collection of characters, variable name, and you should have the same thing on the right side as well. So for us to do that, what we can do now is we can now have this. We can see a to z, which is lowercase, uppercase characters, right? Then also you can have numbers in the name of your variables, so if you like you can add that as well. Then let's have this, which is so we're going to have the same thing now after the conditional operator. So if is going to be there, open bracket, then a variable name, then one of these characters, one of the operators, one of these three operators. So you can add all the other operators if you want, one of these operators, then this particular collection of characters again before you now close the bracket, so that we now have this if open bracket var relational up var and so on. We are not adding spaces because it's just unnecessary for this example. So now let's duplicate this ops with say and vars. So let's say a b. Now let's see. So you can see our if block with ops and vars returns true. However, let's do this. Let's have no variable there. You can see this also returns true, which is not correct, right? Because we need two variables at the side. So the reason why we have this issue is because of this asterisk here. Remember this, let me just, still haven't gotten the name of this, but let's call it optional for now, right? So this now is 0 or more, while the plus sign is 1 or more. So for us to get this to work, we need to change the asterisk now to plus, so that at least we have one character on this side and one character on this side. So I'll come back to this regex now and change this to plus. So now this is saying any number of at least one uppercase or lowercase set of characters, right? So that's what we are doing here. So at least one. So we have this as well. So both this side. So now we will require a character here and a character here. So let's run this and see if we get false. So now we have false because we've removed the characters. So let's have A and B and see. Let's see what it gives us. So we now have our results returning true. So if you're building like your own, let's say, compiler, right, you have the ability to leverage these tools for you to know, okay, if this particular string that I have here matches this particular operation, and hence I can now decouple each of these stuff to perform the necessary action, right? But right now we're just looking at the regular expression that matches what we are trying to identify. So we've moved from identifying just a regular phone number to identifying a date pattern that is of this pattern. If you wanted to do year, month, day the other way around, that means this would be 4 2 2, right? Because you need 4 characters to represent the year, 2 for the month, 2 for the day of the week. So we now started building the code for our if block gradually. So we now have this if block. This one identifies just an if block with an empty set of brackets. So we now tested that here to see if this passes, right? And we tried it without the brackets, without the I, and so on, and we validated that that works. So we now went a step further now to now add this group to say, okay, if we have our open, if we start with, remember this is start with, so if we start with the if block and an open bracket, we can now have within this group, let me now move that. Within this group, we can now have any of this less than, greater than, or equal to, right? We can have any of them, then our closing bracket, and that ends. So we tested that now using this operator and the other operators, and it passed. Then we went a step further to say an if block requires to say, okay, if A is equal to B, right? That's the condition. That's an example of a condition. So we now have to add a regular expression here to identify a variable name, either A, B, or something. So we can do that. So similarly on this side as well. So initially we had an asterisk here, which says that it can be 0 or more characters. And when we ran that, we noticed that it introduced a bug where if either of this, if any of them or if both of them are not assigned, right, or if they are not stated, the regular expression still works. So we now use the plus sign, which says 1 or more. So the 1 or more now is what enforce the rule that these two have to be here, and now we have a working regular expression for identifying an if statement. So you can imagine how deep it goes when you're identifying different patterns of different programming languages. So if you're going to write a pattern now that identifies a statement in maybe Java, for example, at least you know one rule: the statement must end with a semicolon, and so on. Depending on the type of statement you are trying to identify, is going to define some of these rules. So I hope this clarifies some of the things that we discussed. I know you guys love Java, so that's why I decided to use Java to do this example. It's going to be easier for me to show you. It's easier for me to show you all these things with these results than for me to just write the regular expressions and tell you that this is what the expected output will be. So well, good luck with your exam. I didn't expect this video to be this long. Enjoy.